The sun was just beginning to rise over the endless plains of the African savanna. Amina woke to the faint cry of the rooster echoing across the small, dusty village. She stretched her thin arms and ran her fingers through her tangled hair before stepping outside her hut, a small dwelling with a thatched roof and cracked mud walls. Amina had grown up here in Kijiji, a village that time had nearly forgotten. The land was dry and the people poorer still. Her parents had passed away when she was just a child, leaving her to care for herself in a world that offered little kindness. Each morning, she balanced a heavy clay pot on her head and walked the winding dirt path to the village well. The villagers always watched her with a mixture of pity and admiration, pity for the burdens she carried and admiration for the quiet strength in her graceful movements. Despite her hardships, Amina's beauty was undeniable. Her dark eyes glimmered with a light that defied the poverty around her, and her smile, though rare, could warm even the coldest heart. But no one believed beauty alone could change her fate. In the eyes of the villagers, she was simply another poor girl trapped by circumstances, destined to spend her days working the fields and scraping by. Today, though, the air seemed different. The wind carried a whisper of something unexpected, a feeling that change was coming. Though no one could name it, Amina felt it too as she fetched water from the well, her thoughts drifting like the clouds above. She returned home to find her aunt, Mama Zuri, waiting on the steps. Mama Zuri was a stern woman with a face as lined as the parched earth. She had raised Amina after her parents died, and though she claimed to love her niece, her eyes always measured and weighed Amina's every action. "Amina," she said in a low voice, "it has been decided. You will marry Musa." Amina's breath caught in her throat. Musa. She had seen him before, tall and thin, his clothes threadbare and his face hidden beneath a hood that shadowed his eyes. Musa lived at the edge of the village, in a crumbling hut with no family to speak of. He was known for his quiet ways and his endless patience, but also for his poverty. The villagers called him the Wanderer, for he seemed to drift through life like a leaf in the wind. Amina swallowed hard. "But Auntie, I barely know him." "I had hoped." Her voice faltered. She did not have the courage to say what she had hoped for: a better life, a chance at something beyond this endless cycle of struggle. Mama Zuri's face hardened. "Hope is for those who can afford it. We have debts to pay. Musa may be poor, but at least he is willing. You will marry him, and that is final." Amina nodded slowly, her heart heavy. That evening, she met Musa at the old baobab tree where the elders had gathered to witness the union. Musa stood there with his head bowed, his hands rough and calloused. He offered no grand promises or words of love, only a quiet, solemn vow to care for her as best he could. The villagers watched in silence, some shaking their heads with pity. "A poor girl and a poor boy," they whispered. "What good could come of it?" But Amina accepted her fate, her gaze steady as she placed her hand in Musa's. She did not know that beneath the worn cloak he wore was a secret that would one day change her life forever. Life as Musa's wife was not easy. Their home was little more than a shack, with a single straw mat to sleep on and a small fire pit for cooking. Every morning, Amina rose before the sun to tend to the small garden behind the hut and to wash Musa's clothes by the river. She learned the rhythm of his silent ways, how he would return each evening with dusty feet and a quiet smile, never complaining no matter how long the day had been. Musa never spoke much of his work. Amina assumed he labored in the fields or helped the village craftsmen, doing whatever small jobs he could find. But she noticed that he always seemed to have enough to share: an extra yam for dinner, a new bar of soap for her to wash with. She wondered how he managed it. But whenever she asked, he only smiled and said, "I find what I can." One evening, as Amina prepared a simple meal of millet porridge, a knock sounded at their door. It was a gentle, almost hesitant knock, like someone afraid of being turned away. She opened the door to find a stranger standing there, an old man with a weathered face and a tattered cloak that looked as though it had seen 1,000 storms. "Please," the old man said softly, "I am but a humble traveler. I have not eaten in days. Might I share your fire for a moment?" Amina hesitated, but before she could answer, Musa stepped forward. Of course, he said warmly. Come in. You are welcome here. The old man's eyes gleamed with gratitude as he stepped inside. Amina watched him carefully, noting the strange way he moved lightly, almost as if he was not truly of this world. He settled by the fire, his gaze wandering over the small, humble home. Your kindness will be repaid, the old man said in a voice that was both gentle and commanding. Remember this, Amina. In this world, the heart is the true measure of wealth. Amina felt a shiver run down her spine. She looked to Musa, but he only nodded, as though the old man's words were a truth he had long known. That night, Amina dreamed of a great river, its waters shimmering like silver beneath the moonlight. In the dream, the old man stood on the riverbank, beckoning her forward. Seek beyond what you see, he said, his voice echoing like the wind through the trees. For even the poorest hands may hold the greatest treasures. When Amina woke, the dream lingered like a whisper in her mind. She rose to find Musa already gone. The fire burned low. The old man was nowhere to be seen. She wondered if he had been real at all, or merely a spirit passing through. The days that followed were filled with whispers. Some villagers claimed to have seen the old man wandering the fields, his staff in hand, blessing the crops as he went. Others said he was a beggar who had lost his way, a poor soul who needed only a warm meal and a kind word. But Amina felt there was something more to him, something deeper and older than the dust of the village roads. As the days turned into weeks, Amina noticed small changes in Musa. He seemed more at ease, his shoulders less burdened. He spoke to her more often, telling her small stories of his childhood, of the dreams he once had. He listened, too, with a patience that warmed her heart. Yet she also noticed the looks the villagers gave them, pitying glances, quiet laughter when they thought she was not listening. Amina married a pauper, they would say. She deserves better. Their words stung, but Amina held her head high. She had chosen this path. And though she sometimes wondered what lay behind Musa's quiet eyes, she had begun to see the kindness in his every act, the way he would fix the thatched roof in the rain, or leave her wildflowers by the door without saying a word. One evening, as she gathered firewood at the edge of the village, Amina stumbled upon something she had never seen before, a small wooden box, hidden beneath the roots of an ancient tree. Its surface was covered in strange carvings, symbols she did not recognize. She hesitated, her fingers tracing the delicate patterns. Amina felt a thrill of curiosity. Could this be the treasure the old man had spoken of? She carefully lifted the box, its weight surprisingly heavy for such a small thing. As she turned it over, the wind seemed to whisper in her ear, "Do not judge by what you see." Amina's heart pounded. She knew that whatever lay inside this box would change everything. And so, with trembling hands and a heart full of questions, she carried the box back to the small hut she shared with her husband, the hut that held more secrets than she could yet imagine. The days after Amina's wedding blended together like the endless stretches of the African plains, hot, dusty, and quietly desperate. She moved into Musa's humble hut at the edge of the village, a small, weather-beaten structure that looked as though a single gust of wind might flatten it. At first, there was only silence between them. Musa was a man of few words, his face often hidden in the shadows of a straw hat as he worked in the fields. Amina, too, was shy, her eyes avoiding his as she swept the floor or prepared their meager meals of millet porridge and boiled beans. The villagers had stopped gossiping, but Amina could feel their eyes on her whenever she went to the well. They expected this marriage to crumble. She herself was not sure if she had the strength to carry on. She missed her parents fiercely. She missed the laughter she used to share with her childhood friends. But above all, she missed the feeling of hope. Yet Musa never once raised his voice. When she burned the porridge, he only smiled gently and said, "We all make mistakes. Amina, let me help you." Those words, so simple and kind, struck a chord deep inside her. Little by little, her wariness gave way to curiosity. Who was this man who had been forced to marry her? yet treated her with such quiet respect. One evening, as the sun sank behind the baobab trees, turning the sky a fierce red, Musa returned from the fields carrying an armful of firewood. His shirt was torn at the sleeve, and his hands were rough with calluses. He looked up at Amina with a softness in his dark eyes. "You work too hard," she said quietly, surprising herself. "Let me carry some of that for you." He laughed, a warm, gentle sound. "No, Amina, you have done enough for today. Rest a little. Let me take care of this." In that moment, she saw something in his smile, a kindness that seemed deeper than the dusty paths they walked on together. She began to wonder, was there more to Musa than met the eye? The strange visitor. One afternoon, as Amina was washing clothes by the riverbank, an old beggar approached her. He was wrapped in tattered cloth, a long staff in his hand, his eyes hidden by the folds of a faded turban. "My child," he croaked, his voice as dry as the desert wind. "May I have a cup of water?" Amina, startled, quickly filled a calabash and handed it to him. The old man drank deeply, then looked at her with eyes that sparkled like stars. "You are kind," he said. "Kindness will be your shield in times of darkness." Amina frowned. "What do you mean, old man?" He only smiled, a knowing smile that made the hairs on her arms stand up. "The one you love wears a mask. But masks are meant to fall away in time." Before she could question him further, he shuffled away, leaning heavily on his staff, disappearing into the trees. That night, Amina lay awake, turning the old man's words over and over in her mind. "The one you love wears a mask." What did he mean? Musa had no wealth, no power, only his quiet strength and the softness in his voice. Could there be some secret he was hiding? The growing bond. The days turned into weeks, and slowly Amina and Musa fell into a rhythm. Every dawn they worked side by side, tending to a small patch of millet that Musa had somehow coaxed into growing despite the dry soil. Every evening they shared stories by the fire, simple tales of the village, of spirits in the forest, of dreams and fears. Amina began to notice the small ways Musa cared for her. The way he fixed the roof so rain would not leak onto her sleeping mat, or how he always saved the sweetest mango from the market for her. He never asked for anything in return. One evening, as the moon rose bright and round in the sky, Musa took her hand in his. "I know this marriage was forced upon you," he said softly, "but I want you to know my heart is yours. If you will have it." Amina felt tears prick her eyes. She had been so afraid of this life, so certain it would be filled with nothing but hardship. But in Musa's gentle touch, she felt something she had not felt in years. Safety. She squeezed his hand back. "I do not know if I am ready, but I want to try." A glimpse of a hidden world. One dawn, Amina woke earlier than usual and decided to fetch water before Musa stirred. As she stepped outside, she heard voices behind the hut. Curious, she crept closer and saw Musa kneeling beside a wooden chest, hidden in the shadows of the mango trees. He was speaking softly to himself. She could not hear his words, but she saw his hands pull out something that glimmered in the pale light, a golden pendant, heavy and ornate, unlike anything a poor man like Musa could ever own. A gasp escaped her lips. Musa looked up sharply, his eyes widening in surprise. He quickly hid the pendant back in the chest and closed it, standing to face her. "Amina," he said, his voice carefully calm. "What are you doing here?" She stepped forward, heart pounding. "What is that, Musa? Who are you really?" For a long moment he said nothing. The early morning light painted his face in shades of silver and gold, making him look almost otherworldly. Finally, he sighed and reached for her hand. "There are things I cannot yet tell you," he said quietly, "but please believe me, I have never lied to you about how I feel." Amina pulled her hand away. Her heart felt heavy with confusion and fear. She turned and ran back into the hut. The image of that golden pendant burned into her mind. A test of faith. That day, Amina could not focus on her chores. She kept seeing that flash of gold, hearing the old beggar's words echo in her mind. "The one you love wears a mask." What was Musa hiding? Was he truly a beggar, or something else entirely? When Musa returned that night, he found her sitting by the fire, her face pale and drawn. "Amina," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "Talk to me." She looked at him, searching his face for the truth. "You have been kind to me, Musa. You have given me more than I ever thought I deserved. But I can't live with secrets between us. Please, if there is something you are hiding, I need to know." For a moment, Musa looked away, his jaw tight. Then he reached into his tunic and pulled out the pendant, the same one she had seen that morning. He placed it in her hand. "This," he said softly, "is all I can show you for now. It is a promise of who I truly am. But you must trust me, Amina. In time, everything will be revealed." She closed her fingers around the pendant, feeling its weight and warmth. Her mind swirled with questions, but she saw the sincerity in his eyes, the quiet ache of a man who longed to be understood. Slowly, she nodded. "I will trust you, Musa, even if I do not understand. I will try." A new determination. From that night on, a subtle change settled between them. Amina stopped fearing the judgment of the villagers, stopped worrying about the rumors. She realized that what she felt for Musa was no longer just obligation, it was something deeper, something that defied the dusty poverty of their lives. She began to smile more, to laugh at Musa's gentle jokes. He, in turn, seemed to grow lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted from his shoulders. But in the quiet corners of her mind, the mystery of the pendant still burned. Who was Musa, really? Why did he live like a pauper when he owned such a treasure? Amina knew that their journey was far from over. The old beggar's words haunted her dreams, and she sensed that a great revelation was drawing closer, a truth that would either bind them together forever or tear them apart. And so, as the rains finally broke the drought and the first green shoots of millet sprouted from the cracked earth, Amina held her head high. She was ready to face whatever lay ahead, to uncover the secrets that Musa had hidden for so long. For she knew deep in her heart that true love was not built on wealth or secrets, but on the courage to see each other's souls, no matter how many masks might stand in the way. The rains came, as they always did in this part of the world, sudden, fierce and relentless. They drummed against the roof of the small hut, turning the dusty paths of the village into muddy streams. Amina and Musa worked together to keep their home dry, patching leaks and gathering water for their crops. But even as they found comfort in each other's arms, Amina could not shake the feeling that the world was shifting around them. Musa's gentle touch, his quiet smile, they were real, yet that golden pendant weighed heavily in her thoughts. She kept it hidden in a small woven basket beneath her sleeping mat, running her fingers over its intricate patterns every night as she lay awake. One morning, as the rain eased into a gentle mist, a stranger arrived in the village. He was tall, with skin the color of polished mahogany and eyes like coals smoldering in the darkness. His robe was deep blue, lined with silver threads, and he wore a ring of black stone on his finger. The villagers watched him with suspicion. Strangers were rare, and one so richly dressed was rarer still. Amina was at the well when she first saw him. She felt a chill as his gaze met hers. His lips curved into a faint smile. "You are Amina," he said softly, his voice like silk. "Wife of Musa." Her heart skipped a beat. "Yes," she said cautiously. "How do you know my name?" He tilted his head, studying her. "I know many things. Tell your husband that Idris has come to speak with him." Before she could answer, he turned and walked away, his footsteps silent on the wet earth. Confrontation. That night, Amina told Musa what had happened. His face grew pale, his jaw tightening. "Idris," he murmured, as if the name tasted bitter on his tongue. "Who is he?" Amina asked, reaching for his hand. "Musa, please, no more secrets." For a long time, Musa said nothing. The fire crackled between them, casting flickering shadows on the walls of their hut. Finally, he looked at her, his eyes dark and haunted. "Idris is part of my past. Past I thought I had left behind." He hesitated, then continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Before I came to this village, I was not a farmer, Amina. I was a guardian of a great treasure, one that many would kill to possess. Amina's breath caught in her throat.
Cependant.
He nodded. It is only a piece of something far greater. A symbol of a kingdom lost to greed and betrayal. My family was once entrusted with it, sworn to protect it at all costs. Amina swallowed hard, her mind reeling. And Idris, what does he want? I do not know, Musa admitted. But if he is here, it means the shadows of my past are catching up with me. Amina took his hand in both of hers. Then let us face them together. The stranger's bargain. The next day Idris came to their hut. He stood in the doorway, tall and imposing, the silver threads of his robe glinting in the dim light. Musa, he said, his voice calm and cold. You have lived in hiding long enough. The time has come to return what you stole. Musa's jaw tightened. I stole nothing. My family was entrusted with the pendant by the rightful king himself. You know this, Idris. Idris's smile was thin, mocking. The rightful king is dead. Musa, the world has moved on. But you cling to ghosts. Amina stepped forward, her voice trembling. Why do you want it? What good can it bring you? Idris's gaze shifted to her, and for a moment, she saw something flicker in his eyes, greed, perhaps, or something even darker. Power, he said simply. With the pendant, I can claim what should have been mine all along. Wealth, influence, a kingdom rebuilt on the ruins of the past. Musa stood firm, his shoulders squared. I will never give it to you. Idris's smile faded. Then you leave me no choice. The attack. That night, Amina woke to the sound of footsteps outside their hut. She rose quickly, her heart pounding. Musa was already awake, his eyes sharp in the darkness. Stay here, he whispered, pulling her close. No matter what happens, do not open that door. She watched as he slipped outside, closing the door softly behind him. The sounds came quickly, harsh voices, the clash of steel. Amina pressed her hands over her mouth to stifle a cry. She could hear Musa's voice, low and fierce, and Idris's answering laughter. Then silence. Amina could not bear it any longer. She crept to the door and cracked it open just enough to see. Musa stood in the clearing, blood on his face and a broken spear at his feet. Idris was gone, but his men lay scattered on the ground, groaning and clutching their wounds. Musa turned, his eyes finding Amina's. It is over for tonight, he said, his voice ragged. But he will be back, a decision of the heart. In the days that followed, the village buzzed with rumors. Some said Musa had called upon dark spirits to protect their home. Others whispered that he was no mere farmer, but a prince in exile. Amina kept her head down, ignoring the gossip, but inside, her heart was in turmoil. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of crimson and gold, she found Musa sitting by the riverbank, the pendant in his hands. I have to leave, he said quietly, not looking at her. Idris won't stop until he has this. If I stay, I will bring nothing but danger to you. Amina shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, we faced him once. We can do it again. I will stand by you. Musa, no matter what. He looked up at her then, his eyes full of pain and love. Amina, you are my heart. But if Idris takes you to get to me, I could never forgive myself. She knelt beside him, taking his face in her hands. You once asked me to trust you. Now I ask the same of you. Trust that we are stronger together. The hidden truth revealed. That night, under the light of the full moon, Musa finally told her everything. My father was the chief guardian of the royal treasury of a fallen kingdom, he said, his voice low and resonant. When the kingdom fell, my family fled with the pendant, the symbol of the king's line. We hid it generation after generation. Until me, Amina listened, her fingers intertwined with his. And Idris, he was once my friend, Musa said bitterly. We grew up together, trained together. But when the kingdom fell, he turned on us. He believes the pendant gives him the right to rule. Amina took a deep breath. Then we must not let him have it. The pendant belongs to your people, to the memory of what was lost. Musa nodded slowly. You are right. I can't keep running. Plan takes shape. The next morning, they gathered what little they had. Amina packed dried fish and millet cakes in a small sack, while Musa checked the leather bindings of his old spear. They would not wait for Idris to strike again. We will go to the old caves in the hills, Musa said. They are sacred ground. Idris will hesitate to defile them. And there I can make my stand. Amina looked at him, her heart swelling with pride and fear. I will go with you. He took her hand, pressing it to his chest. You are my strength, Amina. Together we will face whatever comes. A journey into the unknown. As they left the village at dawn, the mist clung to the earth like a shroud. Amina felt a thrill of fear and excitement. She was leaving behind the only home she had ever known, stepping into a world of secrets and shadows. But she was not alone. They walked for hours, the forest closing around them, the air heavy with the scent of wet leaves and earth. Musa led the way, his eyes sharp, his hand never far from his spear. At last they reached the mouth of the cave's dark, gaping like the mouth of some ancient beast. Amina shivered, but Musa squeezed her hand reassuringly. Inside lies the truth, he said, and the power to end this once and for all. The entrance to the caves loomed before them, dark and silent. Amina felt the air change as they stepped inside, cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of ancient stone. The light of their small torch flickered against the walls, revealing carvings that told the story of a kingdom long lost. Musa paused, running his fingers over the worn images, kings and warriors, rivers and fields, all etched into the stone by hands long gone. This is where it all began, he murmured, and where it must end. Amina squeezed his hand. Then let us finish it, together, the heart of the cave. Deeper they went, the passage narrowing around them. The air grew colder, and the darkness pressed close. But Amina felt no fear, only determination. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for the memory of a kingdom, for the promise of a new dawn. At last, they reached the heart of the cave, a great chamber lit by a shaft of moonlight from above. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, carved with the same symbols that adorned the walls. Musa stepped forward, his breath steady. This is the place. Here I will make my stand. Amina turned to him. What must we do? He reached into the folds of his tunic and drew out the pendant, its golden surface glinting in the moonlight. The pendant was forged with the blood of kings. He said softly, it is more than just a symbol, it is a key. Here, in this sacred place, it can awaken the spirits of those who came before. Amina shivered. Will it be enough to stop Idris? Musa's eyes met hers. It must be. Idris arrives. Even as he spoke, a sound echoed from the tunnel behind them, the soft crunch of footsteps on stone. Amina turned, her heart racing. Idris stood in the doorway, flanked by two of his men. His robe was stained with travel, but his eyes gleamed with triumph. So this is the heart of your kingdom, he said, his voice mocking. How quaint. Musa raised the pendant, his voice calm and resolute. This is sacred ground, Idris. You cannot claim it. Idris laughed. Sacred ground. There is no power in these stones, Musa. Only in the strength of those who dare to take it. The final showdown. He drew a curved blade from his belt, its edge glinting in the light. His men stepped forward, but Musa held his ground. Stay behind me, he told Amina, his eyes never leaving Idris. The fight began in an instant. Idris's men lunged forward, their blades flashing in the darkness. Musa met them head-on, his spear singing through the air. The clash of steel echoed through the chamber. Amina pressed herself against the altar, her heart in her throat. She watched as Musa moved with the grace of a dancer, each strike precise, each step measured. But Idris was no mere warrior, he was a predator. He circled the edge of the fight, waiting for an opening. At last he lunged, his blade catching the light. Musa turned just in time, their weapons meeting with a ringing clash. A test of faith. Amina's mind raced. She had no weapon, no training. But she had something else, faith. She remembered the carvings on the walls, the stories Musa had told her. She reached for the pendant, her fingers closing around it. The moment she touched it, a warmth spread through her, as if the spirits of the old kingdom were whispering in her ear. She stepped forward, holding the pendant high. "This is not yours to take, Idris," she cried. "The spirits of the past stand with us." For a moment Idris faltered, his eyes flicking to the pendant. Musa took the chance, driving his spear forward. Idris stumbled back, blood blooming on his side. The power of the past. The light from the pendant grew brighter, filling the chamber with a golden glow. The carvings on the walls seemed to come alive, the figures shifting and moving in the flickering light. Idris fell to his knees, his face pale. What have you done?" Amina felt the power surging through her. She turned to Musa, her voice ringing clear. "The kingdom spirit is here. Musa, we are not alone." He nodded, his eyes shining with fierce pride. "Then let us finish this together." Idris's end. Idris lunged once more, but his movements were slow, desperate. Musa met him with a final blow, driving the spear through his chest. Idris gasped, his eyes wide with shock. "For the kingdom," Musa whispered. Idris fell, his body crumpling to the cold stone floor. The pendant's light pulsed once, twice, then slowly faded. Silence filled the chamber. The battle was over. The price of victory. Amina sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Musa knelt beside her, his hand warm on her shoulder. "It is done," he said softly. "The kingdom spirit is at peace." She looked into his eyes, seeing not just the man she loved, but the guardian of a legacy. "We did this together," she said, her voice trembling. He smiled, weary but proud. "Yes, and together we will build something new, something worthy of all those who came before." A new dawn. They left the caves at sunrise, the first light of dawn painting the sky in gold and rose. The village lay ahead, quiet and peaceful, untouched by the shadows that had haunted them. Amina felt the weight of the pendant in her hand, a symbol of a kingdom lost, and a future yet to be written. Musa took her hand, his voice gentle. "The past is behind us, Amina. Now we look to what lies ahead." She nodded, her heart full of hope. Together, as they walked down the path to their village, the birds sang in the trees, and the river glistened like molten silver in the light of the rising sun. The shadows had lifted, and a new dawn had begun. The path back to the village felt different in the early morning light. The river sang softly alongside them, and the forest seemed to bow in quiet tribute to the journey they had taken. Amina leaned into Musa's side, her heart full of both relief and a quiet sadness for all they had lost and all they had gained. The village was stirring as they arrived. Smoke rose from the cooking fires, and the voices of children echoed through the air. When the villagers saw them, they fell silent, eyes wide. It was old Binta who stepped forward first, her face lined with worry. "Is it done?" she asked. Musa nodded. "It is done," he said softly. "The kingdom is at peace. Idris will trouble us no more." A cheer went up from the crowd, soft at first, then swelling into a chorus of hope. Amina felt the weight of their journey slip from her shoulders. She had never known how heavy it was until now, when it was finally gone. The gathering. That night, the village gathered around a great fire. Food was passed from hand to hand, bowls of steaming millet, roasted fish wrapped in leaves, sweet honey cakes. Laughter and tears mingled in the air. Musa stood and raised his voice so that all could hear. "We are free of the past," he said, "but we must honor it, and remember those who gave everything so that we might stand here tonight." He turned to Amina, and she felt the warmth of his gaze. "We are the keepers of the old kingdom spirit, but we are also the builders of the new." The villagers nodded. Some wept openly, others clasped hands in silent tribute. In that moment, Amina knew they had found something stronger than any army, the faith and courage of a people united. "Promise." After the feast, Amina and Musa sat by the river. The moonlight shone on the water, silver and gentle. She rested her head on his shoulder, her voice soft. Do you think the spirits still watch over us? He looked at the pendant in her hand, its gold catching the light. I think they do, he said. But now it is our turn to make this land something they would be proud of. She smiled, feeling the truth of his words settle in her chest. Then let us begin, she said. Let us build something beautiful. He kissed her forehead, his voice a promise. Together, planting the future. The days that followed were filled with work. Amina and Musa led the village in rebuilding what had been lost. They cleaned the fields, repaired the roofs, and taught the children the songs of the old kingdom so that they would never be forgotten. Amina planted a garden by the river, filling it with bright flowers and sweet herbs. Each morning she rose to tend it, her hands in the earth. It was a small act, but it felt like hope. Musa spent his days helping the men of the village carve new tools and build new homes. At night, he would return to Amina's side, their laughter mingling with the soft music of the river. A legacy of love. One night, as they sat beneath the stars, Musa took her hand in his. The journey was long, he said, and there were times I thought we would never see the end. But here we are. Amina looked at the village, at the people who had become their family. Here we are, she echoed. And here we will stay. He kissed her, and in that moment, Amina felt the future stretch out before them, full of light and promise. The final dawn. Years later, the garden by the river grew wild and lush. The children of the village played in the fields, their laughter bright as the sun. Amina stood at the edge of the water, the pendant still warm against her heart. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to the spirits of the old kingdom, to the river that had carried them home, to the love that had given her courage. When she opened her eyes, she saw Musa watching her from the path. His smile was soft and sure, and in that smile she saw the past, the present and the future all at once. Together, they turned and walked back to the village, two hearts joined by the journey they had taken, and the hope of all that was still to come. And so the story ended not with the shadows of what was lost, but with the light of all they had found.